The UK government just drafted a new bill that may send tech CEOs to jail. This news and much more in this week's episode of This Week in Tech. Main news of the week. A new UK bill may send tech executives to jail. This is a new bill that was proposed by the Internet Regulator Ofcom of the United Kingdom. And basically this makes tech companies responsible for the safety of the citizens of the United Kingdom that are using these kind of internet services. So tech companies are going to have to make sure that their services are safe. For instance, preventing scams from happening on their social media platforms. Good luck with that. Making sure that teens are safe in a bunch of different ways. For instance, preventing cyber flashing, which means the sending of unsolicited sexual images, or preventing them from getting into algorithmic rabbit holes. Let's stop for a second because this one is hard to do. So, what is an algorithmic rabbit hole? The algorithms that power social media apps have something called recommendation systems. So they decide what kind of content you're going to watch based on your interactions with these systems. So if you like contents of dog, it's going to show you more contents of dogs, for instance. The problem is that a lot of these algorithms, as a side effect, they tend to push users into so-called rabbit holes. What does it mean? It means that if you like dogs, you're gonna start getting content always more specific to maybe some breeds of dogs that you like. And until now, it's fine. We all love dogs. Here's a picture of my dog, Martin. The problem is that the same thing happens also with different kinds of content. For instance, if you're going through a tough time, let's say through a breakup, algorithms are gonna find out most likely about this vulnerability you have and start pushing you towards a rabbit hole of always more sad content. So you're gonna start watching videos about depression and then maybe suicide. The same thing can happen with politics. If you're, let's say, right-winged, well, then it's gonna always show you more extremist content. The same thing if you're left-wing, of course. If you're vegetarian, it's gonna push you towards contents about veganism. If you are into fitness, it's gonna show you contents about crazy powerlifting or stuff like this. This is a very common trait of algorithms that tech companies are trying to fix, but sometimes it also goes against their own interests because, hey, that's engagement. If people like to engage with this content, the algorithms just is going to give them more. And so that's, I think, one of the toughest parts of this new bill is that how are tech companies going to regulate algorithmic rabbit holes? It's super hard. The other thing that the tech bill says is that the Internet Regulator of the United Kingdom at any point in time must be able to ask to these tech companies for documentation about the kind of content that they push and the safety of the children, etc., etc. And if executives at these tech companies fail to present themselves to these meetings or to show the UK regulator the right data that they want, they may be sent to jail. So this is a really strong crackdown from the UK government for tech companies, and it's a little bit controversial. Let me know what you think. I guess we all want tech to be more safe, but this is pretty extreme. Is it justified or not? Let me know in the comments. Microsoft has been hacked. The hackers belong to a group called Lapsus, and this is a group expert in ransomware. Let's understand what ransomware is. As you can understand, it's the mix of the two words ransom and ware from software. So these hackers try to get into the systems of a big company, then usually they encrypt all their data and say, hey, do you want to have your data back? You better pay this big ransom. This group called Lapsus has a slightly different approach. They try to get into a company by hacking one of their employees. Once they're inside the company, they steal precious code or data from this company, and then they say, hey, if you don't pay me, I'm gonna publicly expose you and publicly push out all the stuff that I stole. This is what Lapsus did. They managed to steal 37 gigabytes of source code of Microsoft products like Bing, Maps, or even Cortana, their AI assistant. And apparently Microsoft didn't pay this ransom because 37 gigabytes of code had been leaked to BitTorrent or other services. Ransomware is growing exponentially. There's always more and more criminal organizations that try to hack companies and then ask for ransoms. But the interesting thing is that the problem is always human weakness. The main way that these criminal organizations use to get into a company is by exploiting people's weaknesses. So if they send to an employee of a company a phishing email, or they manage to find their email password somewhere else, that's a big problem, and we need more training. People need to be more aware of how these companies operate so they can protect themselves, and by protecting themselves, they also protect the companies they work for and all their users. Tesla finally opened their first European factory in Berlin. It cost more than $5 billion. It's going to employ more than 12,000 employees, and it's going to produce roughly 500,000 cars per year, which is more than Volkswagen, the biggest German company, does in a year. So obviously this brings a lot of value to Germany, because there's a lot of money being spent on the country, there's a lot of people being employed, etc., etc. But some people complained about the way that the Tesla factory was built, and especially the location. This factory was built in an area that was protected before. It was a natural reserve, and the factory apparently is going to use a lot of the water from this reserve, and a lot of activists have been complaining and protesting outside of the factory because, well, they think that this is not fair and the company should not be able to take advantage of all these natural resources. It sounds like this may be a case of what people are starting to call techno-feudalism. It's when basically tech companies are so big that they're able to negotiate with the government and get some special treatment. It seems like the original proposal of Elon Musk to the German government was illegal, because on this specific area, in theory, nobody could build anything, and he built a freaking $5 billion worth factory, right? Obviously, the situation is pretty complex. I am not a lawyer, but I want to know what you think about this. Do you think that tech companies are having too much power in shaping how governments treat them? Let me know in the comments. Thank you for listening to this episode of This Week in Tech. If you found that interesting, like and subscribe to this channel, and send this video to one of your friends so you can help them understand technology and be always up to date. I will see you next week. Ciao. Before I leave you, I want to tell you that I started my new community programs. In these community programs, you're going to get access not just to these videos, as well as all the research links that I had to read to know about this news, but you're also gonna get access to bi-weekly deep dives. These are 1.5 hour sessions that I do on Zoom, where people can come in, listen to me speaking for 45 minutes about the most important topics in tech. I usually take just one, really dissect into the most important things and explain it well for 45 minutes, and then we participate in a conversation when together we try to understand how this new technology or this new trend is going to impact society. I'm going to leave the link so you can check out more information and join it if you want.